Come and get started on a new mission, a new direction, a new intention. Welcome to 5.8G Alive at Connections 50 Plus. I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, catering to all your prospects in the third act of life.
Economic well-being, social gratification, personal fulfillment.
Join us on Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Connections 50 Plus Facebook page, YouTube channel,
and on Gael the Caribbean. Good afternoon. Hello. Welcome 5.8G Tribe to 5.8G Alive. Welcome to everyone on Facebook. Welcome to everyone on social media, YouTube, and welcome to our Gael viewers. I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite, one of the co-creators of Connections 50 Plus, the organization that is giving you 5.8G Alive. And with me as usual.
Hi, everyone. Good evening to you. I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, the co-creator of Connections 50 Plus. Welcome to this evening's show.
So we have passed the halfway mark of the year. July. Happy Independence Day to all of the North Americans. I know the diaspora is up there and they would have had their fireworks and hot dogs and barbecue and stuff like that.
Yes.
And the carnivals rolling in as fast and furious throughout the Caribbean. The Caribbean is open for business, entertainment business.
Mm-hmm.
So Jennifer, it's past the half year and we have had a wonderful first half of the year. We're not going to review it again.
Yes.
And as we said last week, we are really on the journey of making sure that our lives are happy. We just finished the cost of happiness and we are thinking now, all right, what really allows us to be happy? And as we hinted last week, Jennifer and I have sat and said, you know, we've talked a lot about the issues of not being prepared for what you do in your 50s and we land in our 60s and we really have to think about, are we prepared? Are we not prepared? And many of us will say that we are not. And now we want to take an exploration of, can we fix the problems we had and think about the 70s? Jennifer, should people be excited about getting ready for their 70s?
I would say definitely yes. It may not be the norm, but yes. Actually, over the weekend, my sister, we both visited my mom, who's 100, and my sister was asking her about aging and, you know, how it is like growing old and all that. And she's saying it's a happy journey. She's enjoying her journey. And we said, yes, for us, it's happy. We are happy to, you know, to be at this stage in life. And my sister mentioned, and she said, you know, but not everybody happy about aging. Some people are very scared. They fear getting old. You know, they're very fearful. So for me, I would say just enjoy each stage as you grow older. You know, enjoy each stage and look forward to the things you can do at the different stages. So at this stage, yeah.
Yeah, and I would want to put forward, I guess, that, and based on the feedback we got on social media last week when we introduced this topic, I would guess that for most people, the unhappiness or the fear associated with the aging process is mostly connected to unpreparedness.
Totally agree, Terry-Ann. Totally agree.
If you know you've not prepared and you've landed there, you're going to realize, hey, what am I going to do? So for the month of July, we are going on an exploration. And just to give you a reminder, we said we are looking at 4 areas. Yeah. And the first one is, who are you minding? Important.
Yes.
And the next one, Jennifer.
You know, we have here,
Where
are you? Yeah. You know, where are you living? Meaning that, are you still in the same place that you have been for the last 40 years, where you brought up your family, etc.? Do you plan to remain there, or do you plan to move on? Yep. So where are you living?
And then we're going to do, how are you going? Okay, what's happening to you? What's going on with your system? And what we're doing is asking you to reflect, thinking about preparing for the next decade. And the last area, Jennifer, would be,
what are you doing? What you doing with yourself? You know, they ask the question, what are you really doing with yourself? Yeah.
Because we're going to have more time, and listen, we will look good, we will smell good, we will have all kinds of goods around us. But at the end of the day, you're going to have less energy. So you see that what you're doing is a critical thing. So today we're starting, and we're going to be talking about, who are you minding? Let's get into who you're minding, and let's make sure that we're still dollar savvy in our 70s. Jennifer, when we say who you're minding, that question can lead us down so many paths. I think a lot of us, as we get into the 60s, remember, 50 hours, this is for you to observe and prepare. But for us in the 60s, as we kind of still hanging on to the old life, getting into the 70s, who you're minding, if you're not mindful of who you're minding, you can get into a lot of trouble. Isn't that so?
You know, as you say, who you're minding, men, it's song, and this is, we're not targeting you by asking who you're minding. Huh?
No, it's women.
But yeah, who you minding, it could go to so many different things. And we are talking about money now, because at this stage, you are looking, and we're talking about the late 60s going into the 70s, or already in your 70s. You are looking at really delving into more of your savings, the money you had put aside for later years. These are the later years.
This is the depletion area.
Yeah.
Not accumulation.
So you find yourself, you may have already found yourself that the monthly pension you're getting, or the monthly income you're getting, is not stretching the way you would have liked it to stretch. All your great plans, whether it is all the plans you had, and you realize that, hey, what would have cost you 100,000 5 years ago in your 60s, now close to 70, hey, with inflation and everything else, that must be triple. So you really have to relook at your situation. And when I think who you're minding, we all in different situations, Terry, and that's why we're going to do our program as an individual program, because your situation is different. You may have situations where you may not have a choice, that you suddenly find yourself maybe in the 60s were good, but then you have your parent, you have a survivor, as you said, could be both parents or one parent, that you are the one who would be responsible for their financial situation. So you have to look at the expenses and make a decision there. So who you're minding, that could fall into that category. It could be your parents. It could be, in some cases, your adult children, that you wouldn't mind in them all the time, but with different situation, they're looking at you for help, whether they decide to come back home and live because of a separation, because you have that, Tarian, at this stage.
The
Our
divorcing,
children
the
maybe
breakups.
in their 40s or so, and definitely the marriage or relationship may not have worked as they thought it would have worked, and they're back home. It happens, you know, and different other type of situations that may happen. So you really ask yourself, what are the situations and who are the people that more likely already dependent on me and the small pension that dwindling. It may have started bigger. And when you leave that workplace 10 years ago,
The lump sum.
listen to me, that was plenty money for some of you all who depending on the job you're in. For others, it may not have been much. But the
Lump
fact
sum and the
is,
gratuity payment.
yeah, the fact is too, don't care how much you got then. It's dwindling now. Even if you have it invested, returns are not as before.
Exactly.
So
You know,
you have
Jennifer,
to.
there's another aspect there. You can look at the big things that you can easily say, well, it's my parents, well, it's my children, and that kind of stuff. But I think that, you know, there's a carefreeness to the 60s, again informed by the lump sum and the freedom for those who, I can do this, I can do that, I can have control of my time. And your spending pattern changes. And because you have time and you're flexible, whether it is not because the children don't come back home because of crisis and stuff like that, you take upon yourself all kinds of responsibilities, spoiling the grandchildren more, indulging yourself in all kinds of things. And I think for many of us, we lose the discipline of that budget, of being aware of what we're spending on, because, oh gosh, it's just this, and the grandson or the son want this, oh gosh, it's just that. And all right, let's not use the budget word, but I want to ask people to do one thing between today and next week. Put every single receipt in a bowl for the week. Every single time you buy something, put the receipt in a bowl. And if you didn't get a receipt because you used cash, write it on a little piece of paper and put it in the bowl. And I think many of us, although we may have a plan in our mind, this is what we have to spend on, we just get carried away spending on frivolous things. And then when we look at that list and we see who we spent on, what we spent on, we are like, oh my goodness. And I know you advise people to budget, but they don't like that word because it has a bad.
And let me tell you, at this age, you don't want to hear about budgeting. Exactly. You know, you're not enough. You're budgeting enough
of it.
So this is not the time to budget. Yeah. But Terry-Ann, when you look at, you know what, also when you talk about who you're minding, you have to look at the hobbies and the habits that you carry forward.
Yes, because you're minding that too.
Minding that, because, you know, we have hobbies, some hobbies that they are very expensive hobbies, and habits. Shopping for women and some men.
Lining for men.
That you may say, okay, I don't have to buy clothes and things for work, but I still need to shop. And let me tell you, I have a friend whose mom, she loved to shop. What made her happy? At 90, drop her to that mall, and she going around to this, and she must buy something. You know, must buy something. So certain habits that we have, and we feel is our money, let us enjoy the money now, and do the things we like. So it could be shopping, It could be traveling, because, you know, we say, listen, I still like to travel and my money will go towards that. What we have to look at is when you say, who are you minded? Where your money going? You have to check that. So you may still enjoy your travel, still enjoy your hobbies, but some hobbies getting more expensive. So in your 60s might be easier, but in the 70s, it get more expensive in different ways, you know, Terry Ann.
Yeah.
When you're traveling, you may want to travel first class now because you can't sit down in economy, you know. You may want certain things. You have to start to say, you know what? If I'm going in the hotel now, I need a certain type of room for me to relax. You know, I can no longer go in somewhere that I'm not comfortable.
You're not sleeping on
It
the couch
sounds
or with your
simple,
cousin, not sleeping on the couch and with your cousin in the
Yeah.
bed with you.
You're not going by any relative at this stage, you know. So it may sound very simple, but you have to check yourself and see who you're mining. Are you mining the restaurant? Are you mining those who have the
Boutique
store?
owner,
Are you mining
the hairdresser,
hairdressers? All these things.
the rum shop
Are you
owner.
mining the club owners because, you know, you're in this club and you must go every Friday in the club to hang, and you know, from the time you start to hang, you're relaxing yourself and it gives you some joy. But you have to know how much money are you really spending in that club every week. Don't be Monday, every week. Because as the Friday line for the boys or the Friday
Or the
evening for
girls.
the girls. Yeah.
Now the thing
So-
about it is that people would, and it may be, we don't want to sound as though we are proposing austerity, because we've been saying that
No.
this is the third act and it's supposed to have a great time.
Yeah, enjoy, have
You have
fun.
to
But
enjoy yourself. But what we have to, when we say, who are you minding? And attached to that is, where's the money coming from
Mhm.
that you're minding? Because remember, at this stage in life, in your 60s, you have two sources of income. You would have probably a stock of money that would be your savings or the gratuity, and then you have the flow, which is the pension. But if you depleting that stock, you're coming from your savings, you're using the credit card, and you are minding
yeah,
people or things or habits or hobbies or pleasures that would take you to 68, 69, and then you have to stop because you will grow out of it. But then you have, remember we said, even if you go to 85, you have another 15 years. And if you don't watch how you're spending the gratuity, the savings, the credit card, you will end up at 70 having to make some real hard decisions when you're really ready to sit and relax, because the savings would have been depleted on other people, other things, hobbies, and you would now be left with Mr. NIS, Mr. Old Age Pension, and the fixed pension, your private pension from the insurance company or whatever it is, to go into the next 15 years in an inflationary period.
And many of us, Terry Ann, too, who would have invested in the 60s, you took that same gratuity and you have invested.
Yeah.
The returns are almost zero right now. So you may have, when you're working out your budget, you may have said, okay, I'm getting my fixed pension, I'm getting some returns from my investments, and you add up that. Now the investment flat. So as you say, you only have two sources of income, and you have to look, you need to look at that. While you're enjoying yourself, you want to save that, because definitely spending in your 60s is different than spending in your 70s.
Yeah. And Jennifer, you know, there's a reality, and many, and I can say this because one part of my life is in one of our financial cooperatives. A lot of people our age would have probably done long-term investments, whether it is bonds or different long-term investments that may have been earning a little 4%, a little 5%, whatever it is. And over the past, say, 3 to 4 years, a lot of them would have matured and you would have cashed them in. For those of you who are fortunate enough to have had those kinds of investments. And you would be looking around to see, all right, can I get something else like that? It does not exist. It does not exist. So you can't reinvest in anything. You have to go to the good old unit trust or bank or whatever it is. And what the concern that I have as a 60-year-old, thinking about the next 30 years of my life, and I've adopted your philosophy. I'm looking in the decades and seeing that my accumulation years are done. This is the pot. And that pot must spread out over a long period. And when I look at the pot, I get very smug. I say, "Whoa, but I'm good. I could do this, I could do that, I could do the other, and I could do this." But then when I say to myself, excuse me, that pot has to spread out. That pot has to take care of exigencies, emergencies, and stuff like that. It stops. I have to pause. And as you know, I'm planning to go on a vacation just now, and my vacations are usually adventures. And I am sitting there and I'm thinking, I've given myself a budget, and I'm saying, but how I shop when I go on vacation before, when I know how I replace in the funds. And I have to start talking to myself and saying, okay, the money is going to be spent on experiences. And I am tracking back to our experience with Richard Young, where we went through our wardrobe and repurposed and so on. And I really am not going into any mall. I'm not, because it has to do with
that is a discipline. Because at this stage, when you're looking at who you're mining, and Terry, what we should say, and I mentioned it before, people in different situations should have those, they are the only person right now within their family circle that could help in certain ways. All right? And you still want to enjoy your hobbies, etc. So you must look at that same pot you're talking about. Some people don't even have that pot.
Whatever, but fun. You have something somewhere.
You have to look at that to see how much from that. If you don't want a budget, if you don't want to call it a budget, that's okay. But you have to analyze your pot. Look at it and decide, well, okay, I am receiving this amount of money, and this is where it's coming from. And Terry said that you need to know where your money coming from. You know what? Also, recently I was speaking with a client, and she has been receiving money from certain sources that she forgot not each one was guaranteed, So you may get, depending on if it's through a spouse, from that
those hangover
retirement fund, etc.
Guys, you have 10 years of
they have what we call it 10 years certain. It means after 10 years. In some cases, and I recall in terms of my time where I used to offer the retirement programs, persons could have chosen 5 years. And the reason it took 5 years is because they got a larger lump sum, all right? Not thinking, of course, of the beneficiaries, they were thinking of themselves at the time. So these are things that we have to investigate, because listen, between the 60 and 70, we got money coming in that 10 years. In some cases, the 5 years, but by the time you hit 70, you have to recognize some of that money being dropped off,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So you may not think of it, but you have to look at situations like that. Check where your income, where your sources of income come. And it could be from business, huh? Because you would have started some sort of business at 60 because you have good health, you have the skills, you have everything, and we encourage entrepreneurship. But let me tell you, after 10 years working that business, don't care what it is.
After 40 years working wherever you
It
work
could
before.
be consultancy, it could be a service based on your skills, all these things. You have started, you finish your work, and you say, okay, I'm going into entrepreneurship. By the time you hit 70, in certain professions, you have to say, you know what? I'm tired. I just can't go again. The skills, if you're using your hands and thing, doing certain things, you realize I may have to hire somebody or pass it on to somebody. So it is, again, you look at that. So if you're in a mid-60s, Terian, and you're doing your consultancy, you're offering service, you have to look, can I continue with that same service at 70? Do I have that energy level to continue with that service at 70?
As we were talking earlier, one of the things that people don't consider, it may be very possible for you to continue with the service because the service may be all about your knowledge and your experience.
Yes, it all depends.
Very possible to continue with the service. I think the other question, and in keeping up with the service, is can you keep up with the technology, with the continuous learning required? Can you continue to retool? Can you go back to a course to learn the new knowledge in that area? Because you can't be consulting at 65 with knowledge that you last topped up when you were 50 and then somebody else is employed and they sent you on a program, you know. But one of the things that I would ask people to look at is not the service, but who you're selling to. Would you have the energy to run the business and get customers? You know the other word for that? Sales. Would you have the energy to continue looking for customers at the level that you now look at when you're 62, 63, 64? And remember, the momentum from 64 is coming off of 55, 56, 57, 58. So even if you peter off and you are thinking, well, this is my retirement business and I'm going down to 80 with this, you have to ask, part of the preparing for 70 is, do I think I will have the energy to run at the marketing and selling side of my business at this level? So if you know that that is going to start diminishing, then it is only prudent that the spending out of that money that you earn also be adjusted. So when we say, who are you minding? My thing is, you know who you're committed to. If you have children, you have those emergencies, you have to deal with that. But we have brought habits over from the 50s into the 60s. And in preparing to continue to have a beautiful life in the 70s, we have to look at who we're minding and see if we want to continue carrying some of those habits and some of those appendages and some of those dependents and some of those hobbies in with us to the 70s, when most likely the income will be reduced. And just many people don't look at that.
It is critical decision making at this time is critical. And I always advocate when we have others involved. So when you say, who are you minding? So whether it involves your sibling, your mother, whoever, the household where you are, you should really get people together to have that discussion. So even if everyone there depending on your income, they also have to understand, listen, I am getting older, I'm looking down the road, my energy level may not be the same. I need your help right now, depending on those who are into some sort of business. So I would need that help from you. Different, different situations, but it is critical. It is one thing, Terry-Ann, for me to say, okay, I am in my 70s, I need to do X, Y, and Z. But I have my daughters might be looking at me and saying, I mean, I've nothing to do right now. She may be able to fund the turn education, the grand education, or something like that. So they may not be putting aside money for that, thinking that this is what I would be doing, and I'm not doing it. It could create a lot of conflict. So you need to really know who you're mining, what you're mining, and have that discussion, even if that discussion is with yourself. If you don't have anybody else, you have to have it with yourself. You have to do some self-talk to really get yourself prepared for that next stage.
Jennifer, I think that point is so important, because if you're now minding reasonable people who are not dependent on you, that conversation can be a very rational, productive, and organized conversation. But if, like so many of us, you are minding a sibling, a parent, a child, a nephew, a niece, the neighbor child who just happened to fall into the family, and you have to ask yourself an honest opinion. And this is you too. I love this self-talk. Is it fair to you to continue minding this person or thing into your late 60s and 70s? And ask yourself another question. For how long have I been minding this thing? Have I been minding this thing from birth? Have I started minding this thing when they went to school and I was helping out and they just never stopped helping out? Another question. Is the person or thing that you're minding still in need of your minding?
Yeah.
Or are you just supplementing and subsidizing a lifestyle that they cannot afford on their own? And is it really, and not is it fair? That's not the question I will ask. I will say, why are you doing it? So if you put all the bills in the bowl and see what you are spending your savings on and your pension on, and check to see, when you look at that, what are you denying yourself? What are you doing without that? You, through your 40s, your 50s, and your 60s, you have the habit of doing without X because you have to provide for this one or provide for that one. Is it reasonable now that you are in your 60s, you've weaned yourself off of the job and you're retired, you're preparing for the 70s, is it necessary for you to prepare the mindy that the minding has to stop?
Yeah.
You know, is that something that is very hard for people to do, Jan?
I would say yes, because to me, we haven't, when we talk money, you always hear the response that we didn't learn how to budget in school, you didn't know money in school, it hasn't been passed on and all this, excuses, or maybe in some situation it's real. But it's the same thing to me in aging. What we learn is from our parents or family around us or the neighbor. So we would say, oh, this one retired and we noticed it did X, Y, and Z. That's what we know. In terms of having guidelines of what to do, some of us may have been fortunate before we left the workplace. The company may have paid for a quick retirement, and we know that in some cases, very few companies do a 3-day retirement course. Most companies do a 1-day, or in some none at all, right? Or half day. So in that period of time, it's always some sort of panic situation, because you recognize at that time, the participants will recognize that, oh gosh, I'm going to retire in a year and I haven't put things in place. So we don't have that sort of you don't have the guidelines. So I have found in my experience that people going through the different stages, and that's where the fear comes in. And we said before, it's because they haven't planned or planned properly or prepared properly. So I would say, fortunately, we at CONEC-TIONS trying our best to help you to prepare for that stage, because who would have prepared you? Right? We both at this stage now, we went through the situations, the 40s, the 50s, we 60, you be retired, they get any pension, we recognize certain things. Terry-Ann at this early stage of 60, I'm at early stage of 70. So our experience and talking to clients, you know, we recognize that, hey, it is critical now to have sessions where we could help you all to move through. Because I realize my experience also came out of, I've seen my parents, fortunately, as I said, my mom lived still alive at 100. She didn't work, but when you chat with her, the strategies she used to still right now be able to take care of herself in certain ways financially. And my dad died at 93. And up to then, he knew about, he's always think about the future and having money there and not spending as much as, you know, others, etc. So I would say I am fortunate, and coming out of a financial sector, I learned a lot. This is not the norm, Terry-Ann.
No, it isn't.
I know it is not the norm. And I am happy to share my experience about that. But turning 60, turning 70, no guidelines.
Yeah, but I will give you an example from my own self. And it is an example of breaking a habit. So I have 2 sons, and the younger one is, call him Mazara boy. And I am in the habits of providing for him, whether it is you're buying clothes, you have to go somewhere, you pay, because you're paying and you're doing stuff. He got a job in January. So he's a working young man. He's working. But he's so unaccustomed to paying for things like clothes, your food. If you have to go somewhere, he wants to go somewhere. He wants a certain outfit. Oh, mommy, you watch, I so much money. Let's go half and half now. And I am finding myself sometimes, how much for it? You really need that. And I'm trying to get him to decide on a lower price, whatever it is. But he don't get me to agree to pay for half. That is unnecessary minded.
Yeah.
And I have to say to him, you're working now. No, I'm not paying for it. And it is a whole long, oh gosh, help me out now. And I realized that in the days that I used to mind you,
Yeah.
I minded you at the level of my earnings capacity. So you would be able to get A, B, and C. But now I am not, I'm a pensioner. I'm a pensioner. And you are an employed young man. So because your income now is not like the income I had when I was in my 50s and 60s, your spending has to adjust, and you cannot expect me to bridge the gap. You have to adjust downwards, come off
Well,
of
as you
my
said,
minding you and mind yourself, adjust. And that is something that I think we don't want to put our children and grandchildren through. They
you
have
see
to
what you
adjust
said there,
downwards.
Terry, and that bridging the gap. We are the ones
So we're minded.
expected to bridge that gap. We expecting to bridge that gap. And we have, that's what we taught them, that's what they knew. And you see what we didn't do.
But I call
is
that
from
him
very,
trying to train me.
it's from very early, have them, prepare them to understand that, listen, they're not working. I'm responsible for you now. And put them on a budget from even before when they get in their allowance and etc. But a lot of us tend not to do that because, you know, it's easier to help out and mind them. So now, as you said, the awareness hits you, but are you strong enough
Exactly.
to say no? And that is where the problem comes.
And
what is called hard love? What
no, that is not
tough
hard
love. Sorry.
That is not
tough
tough love. That is not tough love. That is common sense. Because listen to what it is. And I know listeners could think about this. You, and I'm not into the hard times cases. I'm not into that. I'm into what your mind, what a bad habit you're carrying through. My son has been, for the last 23 years, has been maintained at a level that is in accordance with my earning capacity. I am no longer employed. I am a pensioner. He is employed, but he is employed at a level where I was when I started my career. He is 23. So he probably earning what I was earning at 23. But he is living at a standard at what I was earning when I was 55, 50, 60, and so on. I am making adjustments to a pension, and he expects me to fill the gap between his earning capacity and how he used to live on mine. And my answer is no. And that is what we have to get some strength and courage to do. I will not make up the difference in your budget to maintain the standard that you had in the past.
And it goes with many other things. You use that example, which is a very good example, but you have other sort of examples. And it again, there may be a custom going, and I'm saying this because some of us have to readjust in terms of expectations, that we may be going to the specialist all the time because of certain situations. And now, like a friend shared with me weekend, that she signed up for the health center in the area because
yes.
most of the districts have upgraded their health centers.
Exactly.
And they do have, they qualify, they have qualified, they always had it, but now they are there on call at the centers. And this is to prevent people from rushing into the hospital and the different, the Port Espino San Fernando General. So they have all the health centers now are set up very nicely.
And it's
she
the
was
same 3
boasting to
hours you have
me.
to wait. It's the
Yeah,
same
she
3
was
hours you have
boasting
to
to
wait.
me. She said, "Girl, I signed up, so I don't have to pay all that money again, because she has to go monthly and she has an appointment." And she said, "Very nice service and everything." So even in thinking like that is a way to reduce. But if you're mining, for instance, you have elderly parents or anybody in your household who expect you all the time, okay, I'm going to the doctor, they say I want certain medication, etc. You also have to say, hey, join the clinic. I can no longer afford that.
Jennifer, I have another good one for you, but I wouldn't call the name of the elderly people
Yeah.
at all. Because you may be accustomed to going to the doctor, but now you're incapacitated and you want a home visit, and you want a home visit on demand, and no, you can't get it. So, a whole big part of that, who you're minding, is not about who or what you're minding, viewers. It is about your mindset. What habits in terms of using your money are you allowing to continue, knowing that you cannot afford to do it without compromising your own lifestyle and your own happiness? And that is a critical thing, especially when you're talking about your children and your parents and your friends. You can't go and hang out every Friday evening at the wine bar because you don't have the money to do it. Yeah.
So enjoy your life, but within moderation. You have to, I'm telling you, entering the 70s, you are looking at, can I afford to be around next 20 years? All right? If I continue in the way I am going right now. Because 70 to 80, I'm sure if we interview someone who just crossed 80, they will say, hey, 70 and 80 is 2 different stages, right? At 80, I can no longer maybe drive. I have to get somebody to drive me. I can no longer lime or go out the way I used to go out and stay out late. I can't even go again, So we have to look at, and the support that we have, our friends growing old with us, or most of them dropping off, all these things make a difference as to who are you minding, what you're willing to give up, I should say, at this stage, or who you're willing to release.
And I know, Jennifer, I think there are some important introspective questions that you have to confront and do this privately. You said that yes, if your family is of the ilk that they can have an objective conversation with you and be more concerned about your well-being than maintaining their status quo. And I think for many of us, when we think about, we know who and what we minded. We know when we really should not. You have that little uncomfortable feeling, and after you go to the restaurant with the friends and you spent more than you should have, and next time they say, come, let's go again, and you say, all right, I'm going because you want to be there. The children who want things that you cannot any longer afford and they are not able to afford, and you don't know how to tell them no because you've gotten them accustomed to living in a fine way, and you never told them that they were being subsidized very heavily and the subsidy has to end, and I think if we feel in any area that there's a bit of discomfort or unease, we have to examine those areas. Or we may not be sure what the area is, and we really have to step back and see. And sometimes you don't know who we're going to talk to, what we're going to do. And that's the service that Jan and I are going to be offering to you. But I would say you've got to do some introspection and you've got to be very honest. Where are your resources going? You're reducing pots. Where is it going? Are you making decisions that are in your own best interest? And do you have to continue making those decisions?
Terry, and what you all can do, and I'm just making this suggestion also, for those who may feel uncomfortable with a meeting and it might create, certain type
Discord,
animosity, etc. Could simply ask, as individuals, depending on who is in the household or who you feel putting a strain on your pension or your income, just ask them, what do you expect of me for the next 10 years? So say, okay,
yes,
this is the situation. Just tell me, because I'm checking on my money right now, what do you expect of me? Tell me, do you expect me to still maybe buy you clothes, pay for this, etc.? Because you would know that relationship you have with them. Yeah. So ask the question. So you don't have a meeting, but you would know what that particular person think, what they expect of you. And that will give you the opportunity to say, you know what, I may only be able to do it for the next 2 years, or I may not be able to do it in the way that I've been doing it. I may only be able to help you halfway. Or we may, suggest
reducing balance, reducing
or
every month.
Suggest something for that person to say, you can help by doing so and so. You can help by driving me around. You can help by, So I would suggest for those who find it difficult to control a meeting, or this, I don't like to use the word meeting. It's really a discussion, chatting. Ask the questions. Think of the questions.
We culturally are not people who sit and talk like that.
So just ask a question. And when you ask a question, you get an answer.
Yes.
And then you get the answer clearer. Yeah.
But
so to say, I don't know, say, well, this is what I'm thinking. I am thinking that this is my situation. I'm losing out money here. I have to spend more money here. So I am thinking that maybe so and so. And that's a good way to start.
I think that is something, Jan, that's an excellent idea. And I think that is something that more people would be able to do than to have a discussion, to talk, because that's too much like debt and will and thing.
Yeah.
But if you look at somebody and you say, all right, what do you expect going forward? And you leave the person, because sometimes I think some of the things that we are minding, be they people or merchants or business places or just habits, because we're so comfortable minding them, they think it's fine. And they don't realize that things are changing. The minding situation cannot continue without you compromising on your quality of life. And before you wait till you're 70 or you get into your 70s and it becomes a proper bacchanal and stress, it is really critical to start thinking about who you're minding and ask them, so what plans do you have? I'll give you a little heads up. If they answer you and they say, and you tell me you want me to save, so how am I going to save and still spend?
Again, and that gives you the opportunity to help them how they spend their money. Because you see, you also have to save for a rainy day. So both of us saving, aside a little bit for the rainy day and you putting aside for that. So that is how we have to compromise,
But because my children look at the show, and I must be fair and give the end of the story. To the young man's credit, he came to me just the other day and said, I want to talk to you about what I can do to earn more money. So I will give both sides of the story. I will give both sides of the story.
Yeah, but if you didn't respond like that, Terry Ann, if you responded automatically by handing over the money,
exactly,
the lesson would not have been learned. You would have remained dependent on you to purchase certain things for him. Yeah.
And not only dependent, dependent is one thing, because dependent gives the notion that I don't have the capacity and I must lean on you. And we understand that there are sacrifices that have to be made.
Yeah.
We're talking now about convenience, other people's convenience that result in your inconvenience, and reduce your capacity to do the things you want to do and live the life you want to live, because you're busy minding somebody who could probably mind themselves, or needs to make an adjustment because your source as a source of their income is going to end, So Jennifer, we have been talking, this is a really, really important area for getting into the 70s. And I think that one of the great things about coming up, doing Connections 50 Plus, is that even though we had the host and we create this, it has really affected my life, and I have made some really different kinds of decisions, because at the end of the day, it's not a today for today thing. I most likely will live into my 90s, and I will not have the capacity to continue to drive a revenue making machine into my late 60s, into my 70s, into my 80s. So I cannot continue to carry a lot of the stuff that I would have carried before.
Yeah. You have to make that tough decision.
Yeah.
What you're releasing, what you're moving forward with, who you're moving forward with, Yeah.
Yeah. So we really do hope that you all think about this. We are going to have beautiful lives going forward. And for all the other areas that we have to discuss, if you don't have the resources, now, if you have a child or a spouse or some investment that continues to feed you, good, because you understand where your resources are coming from. But if your resources are limited now and you are still minding a person or a habit that really isn't giving you benefit, you have to think about it. And as Jennifer said, ask them what they expect.
Not just now, what you expect now and what you expect me to do maybe next 5 years and 5 years time. If you expect me to continue doing what I'm doing in 5 years time, I tend to go to 10 years, but make it 5 because it will give them more chance.
Give them time to adjust.
Yeah.
Them time to adjust. So this is being dollar savvy, preparing for your 70s. Make sure you find out who you're minding and why.
Yeah, and this would be one aspect, of course, of our, what we plan for you, our individual program that we have on, for you to sign up for as an individual and learn how you're going into your 70s, what you're going to be doing.
So that was the first installment of Getting Ready for the 70s. And Jennifer, as we said, we have a special program for individuals to help you get through this. Yes?
Yes, so these sessions, which is happening, will be 2 2-hour sessions at your convenience. You tell us the timing, we do it online. And the course is just $800. So could you imagine at the end of it, you will be all ready for the 70s.
Exactly.
So all you need to do is give us a call, let us know your interest and the times you're available, and we will make that arrangement. We're both, Darian and myself, we're going to be discussing and walking you through this, these sessions.
How to start those conversations to make sure. And remember, what we talked about today is just the first of the issues. Who you minded? Next week, join us. We're going on to another one. Where you living?
I mean, we are aware that everybody's situation is different. And that's why we have organized this program to meet your individual needs and situation.
Right. So we will see you next week as we prepare to get ready for the 70s. Bye.
50 Plus Tribe, and follow us from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
Thank you for joining us on this Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive show.
We hope you enjoyed the lively conversation and look forward to seeing you next week.
Don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We really love getting your feedback. Bye for now.